Cool. I think we're on. Yes, people, hope everyone is well. So a different type of video today. We've got a little podcast or an interview, you could call it. More of an informal chat. So I am with who I would describe as like an elite level natural bodybuilder. Okay. The reason why I say he's elite, I mean, if we run through Arthur's stats, he will introduce himself in a moment, but within 8 years, from the age of 15 till 23, he managed to bench press 182.5 kilos, deadlift 250 kilos, and squat 180 kilos. Okay, so, you know, this guy can shift a lot of weight. He has bags of experience, and I feel like, he will be able to offer a lot of value. So, anyway, we'll let Arthur introduce himself. But before you do that, actually, mate, how are you doing?
Oh, I'm pretty well, man. I'm very happy to be here, actually. We made a podcast actually together, also, but I was the one interviewing,
Yes.
and it went great as well. I think I can return, the compliment in terms of skills that you have, and I think that was absolutely great to have you and have your advice on my channel. So everything is pretty all right at the moment. So just working pretty hard, and just like you, making videos when I can, or writing articles and this type of stuff. So on that side, that's all good.
Yeah, yeah.
Should I introduce myself
Yeah,
or?
yeah. So just like what do you do for work? How long have you been training? That kind of thing.
Yeah, so on the side, I actually create, websites. That's what I do for a living. Sometimes when there's some events in my city, I also join in and actually help, the organization of the event. So
Mm.
that's what I do for a living. And on my side, I try to, create videos when I have time to actually convey everything that I know in bodybuilding. So as you said, I started pretty early. I think you said from 18 to 23. It was more from 15
15,
to
sorry. Yeah.
23 years old. I don't think in 5 years I would have been able probably to
No.
reach, for example, as you said, 180 bench. So it took me actually quite a lot of time, 8 years, but 8 years that was very, very intense. And afterwards, COVID happened, also personal stuff. And when you join these two, you don't have as much time to train anymore,
Yeah, of course.
because I used to spend a lot of time every day in the gym. But yeah, in the end, I think I got some sort of, at least good level to be able to give my humble advice to
Mm.
people. So, just very happy to be here today and be
Yeah,
able
cool.
to
We
do
will
this if that
actually,
helps.
yeah, yeah, yeah. We will actually get into kind of how you kind of got to an advanced level and stuff, which I'm personally really interested in as well. Because you've
Yeah.
got lots of experience. That's something you can't buy. You can read so many books and you can tell people your theories, but until you've been there and done it, to me, that's the main thing. So I'll be really
Yeah,
interested when we get into that. But yeah,
sure.
so you've been trained since you were 15.
Yeah, 14 and a half to be exactly precise.
Yeah. So how
So
how old
say,
are you now? That's what I was going to say. So how long has it been in total?
oh, that should be a bad question. No. Uh, I'm I'm 27 now, so yeah, we could say that I've been training intensively for 8, 9 years, and then for the last 4 years, it's just been trying to catch back up with my previous level, which is not always easy, but yeah, we could say around 12 years.
12 years, yeah. So, that's not many people can say they've been natural bodybuilding for over a decade. But to me,
Yeah,
that's an achievement in itself. But what made you get into it at a young age? Like for me personally, I'm 29 now. I didn't start till I was 23.
yeah.
What made you start at like, such a young age?
To be fair, I think there were many things at the same time that made me want to start. I was a very skinny kid, but I think that even before that, even, like we said on my podcast and yours, of people telling you, oh, you look skinny, etc. That
Yeah.
wasn't I think I always loved bodybuilding for a start, because when I was 11, 10 years old, I just remember, I don't know, looking at Ronnie Coleman and this kind of guys. At the time, I didn't know natty or not or whatever, but I was just
Yeah.
inspired by, these guys that were pushing heavy weights. And I just thought that, I don't know, it looked good. I just liked the bodybuilding vibe. And so when I was 10, 11 years old, I just remember one Sunday morning that I wrote a program of like 6 days a week already, but I didn't start until a few years later.
Right.
But I think also the movies like, the Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sylvester Stallone, like these kind of things made me really want to start. And then, yeah, at the same time, when I was 14 or 15, I kind of like started to grow in height. And unfortunately, I was like very skinny. And yeah, sometimes, you get a sense that you might be too skinny. And like, I
Hmm.
don't know, the two things that together made me really want to start. And yeah, I just fell in love with bodybuilding even before starting.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, all these things of being skinny and already loving the thing before even starting, really, I think, made me start lifting my first weights or doing body weight at home, and then I really grew from that and never really stopped.
No, 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 I understand that. So, at your peak body weight, obviously we've touched on a little bit about, the weights you've lifted, that's no joke. I mean, I think I've seen on your Instagram. I'll probably try and get some clips overlay in here just to, show that. What would you say was the main thing to kind of get to that amount of muscle and to get your lifts that advanced? Because I think you can agree, going from a beginner to intermediate is not too difficult. Intermediate to
Yeah,
advanced obviously requires a bit more. But then going from that like advanced to, I'd say personally, I see, benching 4 plates, 180 kilos, that is elite level.
yeah.
What do you think that is down to? Like, is that, to be fair, I'm going to leave you with that. I don't want to give you my thoughts before you say it. So I'd like to. What do you think kind of got you there?
Well, I always first of all try to train as much as I could for the level I was at. So I don't think you have to burn things and try to train 6 times a week as a beginner, for example. But you try to train as much as you can still, so like 3-4 times a week intelligently. For myself, it's just been well, consistency. Obviously, that's an advice that everyone will hear. But at the
Yeah.
same time, I think it was consistency plus quality work. It
Mhm.
hasn't always been perfect, but at least it was good enough. And then I think it was just my will to work, very hard in the gym. I wouldn't say for bench press I was gifted or anything. I think I have pretty long arms. My triceps probably take over my actual chest. Like I don't really have a good morphology, I think, for bench, but I fell in love with benching as well.
Yeah.
And what got me there is really at some points, well, first working very hard over the years, being very consistent, but just specializing into benching a lot. So I, spent a lot of time benching. I would say, I did things that were probably a bit unconventional in a sense that for most people, they would say I probably overbenched or like did too many sets or
Yeah.
trained chest too hard. But that worked for me. So I wouldn't give the advice for anyone and everyone, but I think that I was very willing to bench a lot, and I didn't do this the first years or train as hard the first years. But as I got after 5 or 6 years, I could allow myself to train even more, get more resistant to training. And a lot of people think that you have to rest a lot, and that could be true. But at some point, when you're very consistent and train very hard, you actually get very resistant to the
Right.
weights, and you can increase the time that you train. And I could allow myself to do 3 hour session for bench press. I know it's not probably the
Wow.
best advice for everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, 3 hours of chest, not just bench press.
Yeah.
But I think for most people who want to bench um, a lot more, I made some videos about that. Improve your technique very fast, as the best way that you can. Try to eat a little surplus over time,
Hmm.
and bench twice a week. It's already a pretty good start to get to these type of lifts over the years.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's to be fair, like some interesting points there, with you saying that, you benched a lot, the long sessions in the gym, um,
Mm.
which I can understand. But I think, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that where, you touch on just the consistency, staying in a surplus. It sounds like it's just almost doing the basics and just doing it for longer.
Exactly. And I would say to reassure people that you can actually get to a great bench level by just doing things normally and not training that hard. When I say I trained this hard, like 3 hours, etc., that was after 6, 7 years of training. And I only did this for like the 2, 3 last years of me training, intensively. But before, I already got to like a 140 bench by, just being very consistent and training hard. But
Hmm.
at the end, to get from 140 to 180 is like as hard as getting from, for example, 60 kg to 120 or to like it's much harder. So, like the last 40 kg from 40 to 140 to 180 is super hard. And so I had to really step up. And, my only way to actually keep improving fast, because I wanted to keep improving fast,
Yes.
was just to train harder and to prioritize gymming more. But on the side, all my life was adapted around this, meaning that I was working, for example, at night for my job on the side. And then I was, sleeping until 11 or 12. And then I had my full day. And I was just, working at night and leaving for the gym during the day. So that probably wouldn't have been possible if I wasn't really just about gymming, unless I was doing maybe powerlifting and a different type of training. But for bodybuilding, I don't think I could have got to a 180 bench if my life wasn't around it, which means that it's hard to get to this type of level if you're not gonna sacrifice everything on the side, and it's mostly not sustainable. And today it's hard to do the same as I used to.
Yeah. No, good answer. I think, I can't even speak from your level. You're definitely on another level compared to my training, but even myself thinking of, getting the marginal sorry, like how much you have to put in training naturally for what you get out. Like you might add, I don't know, 10 kilos on your bench in a whole year, and that's, prioritizing your sleep, working like your whole lifestyle around that
Yeah.
perfect time to train, your food, your nutrient time, and all of that. It's so I can only imagine what it's like to go from 140 to 180 bench.
Yeah, as we say, it gets harder over time to improve, and so it gets truer, as long as you keep improving. And so at some point, it's like in video games, going from level 1 to 20 is not as hard as, when you're like on level 100 or whatever game, you're playing, but it's kind of the same here. Like getting 2 kg more is harder. And because I didn't, if you don't get any more results, you kind of like get a bit depressed. Like you don't want to go train anymore. So my thing was to keep improving fast. And to do that, I had to like work a lot harder in the gym, but I was fine with it. But as I said, I don't think it's exceptional or anything. I think a lot of people could do this if they did want to, but then it doesn't always match with the reality of things. And if you've got to work a lot, on the side on your life, training 4 hours a day or 3 hours is just not sustainable. But it's possible. Like, I think that other people could do that. I see people that are 18 or 19 today, nowadays benching 140 and doing very well. So, that was my experience. I wouldn't say it's the same for everyone, but that worked for me to train, kind of like the more I did, the more it worked. But still, quality is the first thing to look at before quantity anyway. And that's the best advice I can give is to focus on quality, do as well as you can with quality. And then, if you start stagnating, you have to think, well, do I want to actually prioritize gym more, do a bit more quantity? Well, it's up to you and what you want to prioritize in life then.
Got you. Yeah. No. The next thing I was actually going to ask you is about your training approach with your training split, which I guess you could touch on, your intensity and your actual volume. So obviously, from what you're saying, your volume was relatively high because you could.
Yeah.
Because it's one of them, I guess. You do as much as you can recover from, and that's going to vary from person to person. But the long sessions, I assume your rest times were quite long for strength kind of training. Yeah, kind of touch on what kind of training split you ran. And yeah, all them kind of variables.
Yeah. I think I'm gonna give something general for most people that would work. Um, because my experience might be slightly different and I don't want to send people, beginners, in the wrong direction.
Yeah.
I think that to improve, 3 times, 4 times a week as a beginner is great. I would say that gathering muscles that go well together to train as well is a good idea. Just like a push-pull legs is actually usually a good thing when you bring, for example, your chest, your shoulders, and triceps together. Because when you do chest, you use your shoulders and you use your triceps, so that's pretty intelligent, and it allows recovery in your rest days. In between these sessions. Also, doing back and biceps. When you do your back, you use a lot your biceps, and so doing them together can be pretty intelligent. But I think as a natural, trying to be frequent and try to do at least 2-3 muscles twice a week can be a good idea. I think I would prioritize this over doing like one big session of one muscle and only doing it once a week. But as a natural, it's not gonna be always possible. And with the life on the side, to do two muscles twice a week, so 2, 3 is already good. And usually, anyway, when you do some muscle, you also have crossovers to other muscles. So you actually kind of involve them, and it's like you were doing them once a week and a half sometimes, you know. So
Yeah.
I think trying to hit, the same muscle, 2, 3 muscles twice a week is a good thing, and then all the other muscle once a week. Try to give 2, 3 rest days in between will be good as well.
Hmm.
And yeah, I think for most people that will work in terms of training split. Um, for myself, that's what I did actually until I got to a time where I was 6 years in, and I was actually able to do then two muscles, almost all of them, twice a week. But I wouldn't advise this, especially to everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, training twice a week for all muscle, non-muscle as a more advanced level, but still try to be as intelligent as possible, as in give enough rest still in between the muscles for to have them to recover. But when you get more advanced, I think that you recover much easier. It's not really the same anymore. It's not like a beginner that needs to rest much more. So it's a different thing really. But I think the most important for me was to answer for people who are starting, mostly beginners, etc., and intermediates. And actually nowadays, because I don't have as much time, this is pretty much what I do: a push, pull, and legs type of workout.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's really interesting. How you think you become more resilient to your training and you can actually train more frequently. And
Yeah,
I've experienced that with like leg training, for example. So when you first go in the gym, you do like a couple of leg extensions, you can't walk for a week. Like everyone's definitely experienced that. But
yeah,
I also think as well, I don't know what you think to this. I guess this is about managing your intensity and your total volume for the week.
of
But
course.
for me, as I get stronger, I actually almost need more rest days. Obviously, there's other variables that comes in play, like your sleep, your nutrition and stuff. But say, I don't know, you're shifting a 5 plate, 6 plate deadlift.
Yeah.
Do you think that, from that session to your next session, do you ever feel like you need more rest days, or do you actually think you do become more resilient, you don't need as much recovery?
It depends on what you do on the side in life, I think, because that's the thing. When I could just lift all the time, eat all the time, even when I was doing my job at night. This is a
Yeah,
job where I could eat food, so everything was turned around bodybuilding, and so I could deadlift twice a week and I could do crazy sessions. But also I was in between 19 and 23 years old. I don't know if it plays a role, but and
yeah,
maybe I was doing junk volume in the end, but I love bodybuilding so much that I would have rather actually even done junk volume just because I loved to lift weights than doing what's optimal, I guess. But I think that was still working for me. But I think that for sure, when you learn to be very intense, like to bring intensity to your workouts, and actually focus, really on the muscle, and not doing, just sets without really focusing, it changes a lot of things. I think that indeed you could get in 1 hour a lot more than some people do in 2 hours if they're not really focused on actually bringing a lot of intensity to their sets. And so, you know, in the last years of me training hard, maybe I was doing a bit of junk volume. I don't know. I think what I did was the right thing for myself. But for most people, focus on quality first, good programming, good exercise selection, and then each of your sets try to bring as much intensity as you can. Uh, and this should already bring a lot of results. And you might indeed be tired, and not be able to do as much as you thought you could do if you didn't bring that intensity. So, try to do the right things first, and then indeed you might not be able to do as much as you thought you were gonna do without, if you didn't do that.
yeah, yeah. I think it's a great point as well when you speak about kind of what the most optimal thing to do and what you enjoy are two different things, and I do think you can strike a good balance. Like for me, what's deemed as optimal I actually find boring at times, you know
Mm-hmm.
um so I think that is definitely overlooked as well. um there's
But people are scared to overtrain as well sometimes. But
Yes.
It really depends on what you do on the side. I mean, if you're gonna work 10 hours a day for your side work, of course it's gonna be very hard, and like that's why it's very individual gymming, and you really have to consider what who the person is. Uh, and some people are different. Like I
Mm.
was listening to the Geoffrey Verity Schofield video. Maybe you know this guy. I don't know. He was talking about work horses and race horses, I think, and comparing this to the type of people and how they can train. And it's true, some people can train 4 hours, and I could do this and not be super tired and still improve. I was
Yeah.
doing everything on the side, like eating 5,000 calories. Like I was obviously giving everything that I could to actually be able to do that. My life was around this. But some people, they'll just train 1 hour, good intensity, and they might not need more to actually grow, even after 6 years of training. Some people grow faster than others, and I don't need the same amount of work. For myself, it was a lot of work that I had to do. And, for my first years of training, even training just, normally, I could improve a lot. But then, I improved even better by training much harder for some reason. And that worked for me. It doesn't mean it's going to work for everyone. And I think the best you can do is to start small, increase a little bit. And when you find the right point, the right balance, then, carry on with it. But don't try to overdo or to not do, enough. Just, but start by little until you reach that point where it's good enough for you.
Yeah, I 100% agree. I think that, everyone is so individual, and what they can recover from is so different to the next person. And
Yeah.
that's what I'm actually going to touch on now, actually. Like, the genetic variability from humans. People think it's like
Yeah.
that. Mate, it is huge. It's like this. Which is
Yeah.
what I want to get into, is like discussing your genetics. Um,
Okay.
and I want to ask you, do you think the average person or most people can achieve what you did naturally if they put in the amount of work you did? Where do you think you kind of lie on the genetic spectrum, if you like?
Um, I think actually, it might be a bit surprising, but I think yes, people could reach what I did, because I don't think I had good genetics or anything. Actually, looking at my transformation video, I was probably the skinniest guy at school, and
Really?
then this doesn't mean anything, and that starting skinny could still mean you've got great genetics or whatever. But for myself, and that's probably the thing that, when I say I used to train 3, 4 hours sometimes a day, this is probably actually what brought me to that level. Because when I don't train as much, like right now, I just don't get the same results. And so maybe I have great genetics in terms of I don't get injured by doing all this, and that I probably rest. I don't know. Maybe I recover faster. But again, my whole life was adapted around this, so it was a lot of sacrifice to actually get there, and a lot of hard work. That indeed, if I was actually really gifted genetically, I would
Mm.
have done this training less hard than that. And by training less hard than that, I don't think I could have reached that. So I think it's really thanks to like the all the time that I would spend there, rather
Mm.
than just a gift. But at the same time, the only thing where I could say maybe I was lucky is not to get injured by doing all that. And this is a genetic maybe feature, being able to do all that without getting injured, and then being able to do this on the long term and actually improving over time. But again, when you take into account that I was just gymming every day, uh, because I was doing a job where I could work at night and still sleep enough, and then just eating all the time and just thinking gym, 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 gym.
Mm.
Then it could be possible for a lot of people to do that if they were in the situation when they if they had to do that. And I think yeah, it would be possible, but for most people, like they just don't want to do that because most people, why would you want to train that much? Myself, I'm so passionate that I did it, but for most people, it's just not worth it. But I think everyone can get a super good level unless you really have actual real genetic limitations like disease or whatever. Like yeah, maybe you can't do that. But to get to like a decent level, maybe 120, 140 bench after 3, 4 years, 5 years of training, I think everyone can do that. And then, as I said earlier, going from 140 to 180 bench is just a lot more implications. And you just do it because either you live from the gym, you've got a business, or you're a PT and you're always at the gym and you can actually do that much. or you're passionate and you have the time for it, but if you work on the side, it's just not really possible. So
Yeah, it takes a lot of commitment.
yeah,
But yeah,
some people have a lot more genetic potential. But what I will say is that I think that anyone, even with bad genetics, could get to a good level at least. Perhaps there aren't bad genetics. There are good genetics, but there aren't bad genetics. As in, if you still work out and do the right things, even with so-called bad genetics, you'll get to a pretty good level, I think.
Yeah. No, I can agree on that. I think obviously with my job, I've worked with a lot of people, and when I look at people's genetics in terms of how much muscle they can build, it's like there's not a massive extreme. I think I probably worked with one or two people where I thought, you know what, you're going to have a hard time. But don't get
Yeah,
me wrong, they can still get to a decent level. They could probably bench 100 kilos if they applied themselves. But you get the odd one or two that are freaky strong, kind of them
yeah,
people that can almost bench 100 kilos within a couple of months of training. You do get them freaks. But the majority
of
of
course.
people, I don't know if you can agree that we're all like, most people are average, aren't they? That's why it's average, I guess. But like, there's a lot of
Yeah,
people, there's not an excuse for a lot of people when they kind of call the genetic card. I think a lot of the time it's not actually down to the genetics. I think it's down to your commitment to training. Uh,
yeah.
Most people that I know that work hard at training, they normally end up doing all right.
Yeah, I think to sum up, I was just an average genetic guy.
Mm.
Although some people will say, when they watch a transformation video, they'll say, "Oh, you must have had good genetics." But when you look at me when I started, it's like everyone would have told me you have bad genetics for bodybuilding. But to sum up, I think I was just an average person for genetics that
Mm.
was obsessed. I was literally obsessed with the gym. Even when I was sleeping, I was thinking about gym. So
Yeah.
uh, that's why I got there. But it came with a lot of sacrifice that might not be worth it for most people. I think if I'm just passionate about it and obsessed. That's why. But genetics wise, I think I was just like any
Mm.
other guy, to be honest.
Yeah. I don't know about you, but I think, oh, hang on, run out of time. What we're seeing here, we've got 9 minutes 55 left for this meeting. We should be all right. Yeah, we'll move on from this in a second, but I was just going to say that I feel like with, calling the genetic card, I feel like you have to train for a minimum of like 4 or 5 years
Of
properly
course.
to even contemplate, genetics. Do you agree?
I totally agree. And I think that people would be a lot surprised, naturals, if they actually start uh, from the start, if they're lucky enough to get the right advice from the right people. For example, the good natural bodybuilding channels, even what we give, I think, as advice as naturals, we give good advice. If you start straight from that with the good advice, you train intelligently, with high intensity, good food, etc. In 3 4 years, like you can really blow up. Honestly, that's and a lot of people don't think that, but you can
Mm.
get great results. And yeah, 4 or 5 years is far from, I think, your natural potential for most people. And so, you can get incredible results in 3 4 years as a natural if you do things well, and you're still far from your natural potential. I think that it also depends of what you have on the side in life that might slow you down. And usually people don't understand that it's just because they don't have more time to train because they've got a life on the side, but that's fine. But they still got potential. Like, too
Yeah.
many people talk about the natural limit too quickly, I think.
No, I completely agree. Completely agree. What I'm going to do, I'm going to move on to something else I wanted to touch on. We're going to keep this one quite brief, but I am interested in your thoughts. So,
Sure.
what do you think I don't know if I can call it modern bodybuilding at the moment, where I'll give you an example with the chasing optimal training, reverse banding things, sticking cuffs on every exercises, D handles on machines, all that kind of stuff. What do you think to that? Are you more in the camp of do your basic bread and butter? Are you more that side, or are you kind of in between? Where are you with all that?
You know what's funny is that I've always seen these kind of things, optimal and these new things, etc. But when I've trained and even reached, to this level where people would say, oh, 180 bench, like it's a lot. The only thing I've done for that was the basics and benching and just benching harder, or like, doing maybe post bench press and working on my technique and my form and this kind of stuff. But apart from that, I haven't done anything else. I can understand that if you get really to an advanced level and getting 1 more kg on your bench is very hard, then you might want to start thinking about this detail stuff about training that could maybe help you, because it's so hard to improve now that you have to be very intelligent and actually maybe do some advanced techniques that might work indeed. But for most people, you just capitalize on the basics and that works enough. And you don't even need to have bands or whatever. Like just do 2-3 exercises per muscle. Stay in between the right range, like 6 to 12. Eat at a calorie surplus, like 200, 300 on the side. Have an intelligent program that allows enough recovery while training intensively enough. And yeah, focus on these basics that are good for your morphology, that won't hurt you in the long term. Exercises that you can scale over time because you want to improve always. And that will be enough. Like basics are key, and capitalizing on the basics is what works. Find the right quality and capitalize with quantity on this quality over time. But yeah, basics are key for bodybuilding, I think.
Mate, completely agree. And it's so refreshing, to hear someone, especially like you, say that, because I say this to people all the time. Don't get me wrong, like I will add like a cuff lateral raise here and there, but the majority of my training, it's really not that exciting. It is your bread and butter basic movements. And what almost doesn't frustrate me, I don't care enough, but when you speak to people, there might be nice people or whatever, but they'll be talking about resistance profiles on machines and kind of slating different brands of machines. And like for example, the Mark 1 Cybex hack isn't as good as the Mark 2, so I'm not going to use that one. I'll use this. And I'm always looking at them like, you can't even squat 80 kilos. The thing you should be worrying about is a brand of a machine.
That's the whole science bodybuilding stuff that goes with it as well. Like, it's just trying to be as optimal as possible. And in bodybuilding, what always works is focusing on the basics, and no need to be like, okay, I'm going to do a superset, drop set 360, no stop, whatever. I don't know, man. You name it. But I don't know. People want to invent new names for exercises, new stuff, new cool stuff that sells. And usually a lot of influencers do this because they want to create new content and try to make marketing nice names for new exercises that have always existed already. And the good old exercise always work the best, and the basics as well.
Mate, 1000% agree. I think like I said, that's refreshing to hear someone with a similar view, because I feel like now people are definitely chasing optimal, and maybe for some people they might need to look a bit more down that path, but for a lot of people, that in my opinion, they don't need to be overthinking things too much. But I wanted to ask you another thing about yourself regarding competing. I don't actually know if you've ever competed. Have you ever, or would you ever?
I never wanted to compete in natural bodybuilding because nowadays it's rigged. I mean, a lot of people that used to be non-natural can compete in natural. That would be too expensive to test everyone. So that would be nice for personal achievement, but then it takes a lot of time to prep, to cut down. You've cut down very low. I've never cut down as low as you. I did cut down though. And right now with my life, I don't have time to do it. But I would do it if I had the time again, and to see my peak performance, and to actually see if I can beat people that take gear, for example, naturally. But right now, I would still be disappointed of it would be for personal achievement rather than for the glory of winning a competition, because there are a lot of people that, like, you can pass the test even if you're on gear, and right now it's not good enough for me, the industry, to be able to do a natural competition. Morally wise, I wouldn't be very happy with it personally. For personal achievement, that could be a thing, but it takes time, and right now it's not the right time for me. But that would be nice to one day have this experience at least.
I mean, just thinking about your actual gym performance, like there's definitely going to be a lot of tissue there. But
I mean, I've lost a lot. Like I didn't mention it, but I was at 182 bench press before and this type of stuff, and I had a lot of size because I was really into bodybuilding, so I wasn't just benching, etc. But with life on the side now, etc., I'm maybe standing at like 130, 135 bench, but I only work out 3 times a week, so I still maintain like if I was doing 6 times a week, I could go back to 160 probably. But the tissue is not as much as they used to be. But
Yeah.
if I can go back to that type of tissue and to my best level, then yeah, I think I would be competitive in natural bodybuilding, but maybe just yeah, still I would probably look a lot smaller than people who take stuff, obviously.
Yeah.
But I would be interesting on stage to look at, probably, hopefully.
Yeah. No, goals change, don't they? Life changes, priorities change. But I guess if you did potentially in the future really want to knuckle down and give it your best, obviously you could probably be humble enough to agree there would be a lot of potential there, like to compete, which would be, maybe you would do it one day. Who knows? That would be cool. But what I wanted to finish up on, because we've got like 1 minute 40 seconds left, we'll finish on a nice juicy one. Have you ever considered taking PEDs? Would you ever? And what do you think to people that do, especially people that haven't been training 5 to 10 years naturally, and they're not like at an advanced level yet?
Yeah, no, I never really considered it. Like, I guess, that could cross my mind. Or would I? Obviously, would I wonder this? But not in a sense, I didn't wonder in a sense, oh, am I going to do it? I just wondered in a sense, I just don't think it's worth it. I think that, a lot of people on Instagram, etc., like one people that succeed taking steroids for a long time, there is 999 people that will suffer consequences that we'll never hear about. I think people highly underestimate how they can actually hurt you. So I never considered it, and I don't think I'll ever consider taking them at all. And what was the last thing?
You've got about 25 seconds, but what do you think to people taking PEDs before they're even, advanced or 5+ years of training?
They're taking a massive amount of risks, and I think that a lot of people can actually get a better level naturally that they might ever get on steroids as well. So they're probably rationally, and for 99% of the people, making a huge mistake that they'll pay off probably later. And we'll discuss this maybe another time with more details. But in my opinion, just don't do it. Not worth it at all. Taking a lot of risks.
No, completely agree. And you just about got that in time.